Exhilarating revelations await. These 5 things will trigger avoidance. Consider that title a signpost to the hidden corners of human attachment. We're about to wander through the subtleties of those elusive souls who seem so confident, so poised, yet slip away the moment emotional demands loom large. If you've found yourself entangled with a partner whose heart blows hot and cold, who craves closeness one day and vanishes the next, this exploration shall prove deeply enlightening. Let us begin by clarifying what is meant by the term avoidant. In the realm of attachment theory, it describes individuals who habitually maintain emotional distance to feel safe. Yet, there is a more complex subset called the fearful avoidant. These folks have a contradictory recipe simmering beneath the surface. Part anxious, part avoidant. Picture it as an internal tug of war, with one side fretting that they'll be abandoned at the slightest misstep, while the other side insists on solitude and independence to keep from feeling trapped. Most intriguing is how quickly and unpredictably their moods can shift. An intimate evening whispering confessions can, in a blink, transform into 3 days of radio silence. Fascinating indeed, but never easy to navigate. Our focus this day will be the 5 triggers that send avoidance, especially those with fearful leanings, spiraling toward more pronounced flight behaviors. While they are already predisposed to retreat, these triggers heighten their reactions and can make relationships feel like walking a tightrope. Consider the scenario. You're so exhausted by your partner's push-pull dynamic that you decide you've had enough. You break up with them thinking, surely that will end it. Yet, in many cases, this very act galvanizes their anxious core. Picture a 2-headed creature. One head is anxious, terrified of abandonment, and the other is an ever-watchful sentinel that says, flee. If they happen to be wearing their avoidant head for the majority of the relationship, you might feel consistently held at arm's length. No matter how many heartfelt messages you send, how many dinners you plan, you can't quite get into their inner circle. Eventually, frustration and heartbreak build until you sever ties. Here's where the paradox rears its head. An avoidant who seemed cool and distant may pivot rapidly into a flurry of text messages, calls, and desperate entreaties. Abandonment, after all, wakes the anxious side. Rather like a cat that never let you pet it until you dared to ignore it. Suddenly it's weaving itself around your legs, mewling for attention. The heartbreak is real for both parties. You never intended to trigger their deeper anxieties, and they never wanted to seem uncaring. This puzzle is further complicated by a sense of bewilderment. How can they push me away for so long, then feel devastated once I walk? It speaks to that internal tug of war. The trigger has been pulled, and both heads begin quarreling in earnest. Imagine someone already burdened by the sense they are inherently unworthy of lasting love. If they sense, in the slightest, that a partner exploits their vulnerabilities, the wound splits open further. It's reminiscent of a castle that's rarely opened its gates, because once upon a time it was sacked. Now, with suspicious eyes, that castle's guards inspect every visitor who arrives. When a partner's behavior seems to confirm, yes, I'm only here to drain you, the fearful avoidant experiences betrayal on 2 levels. First, it's a blow to their anxious side that deeply craves genuine acceptance. Second, it affirms the avoidant side's perspective that letting people in leads to exploitation. Sometimes, ironically, it is the anxious partner who unwittingly triggers this feeling. The anxious one, longing for reassurance, may attempt to spur action through emotional pleas or demands, unaware that these tactics can feel manipulative or pressuring. The avoidant partner, perceiving these methods as emotional blackmail or exploitation, recoils further. Thus begins a rather tragic dance. The more one partner presses, the more the other retreats, and neither emerges satisfied. Closely consider the significance of taking big steps forward, moving in together, traveling for a ring-shopping weekend, or simply having a conversation that begins, "Do you see a future with me?" While such moments can be joyous leaps of faith in a secure relationship, for an avoidant, particularly one with a fearful tinge, these questions loom like thunderclouds. The idea of losing independence can spark panic. Each new milestone, from labeling the relationship official to discussing marriage or parenthood, seems to shout, "Brace yourself for obligations. You cannot escape once you cross this line." To the average listener, these leaps might not appear threatening at all. Yet beneath the surface, the avoidance mind whispers, "Security equals entrapment. Someone will rely on me, and if I fail, I'll face judgment and heartbreak." It aligns with the fundamental avoidant perspective that closeness often leads to being smothered or losing identity. So if you have planned a romantic weekend with rose petals on the bed and a heartfelt speech about wanting to build a life together, know that while these gestures seem tender, they may set off alarms in the fearful avoidant's internal fortress. The trouble isn't your generosity, it's the fear that soon there will be no exit. Observe how two insecure attachments can lock horns without either person recognizing it. Picture you have an anxious attachment. You yearn for constant affirmation, proximity, and the knowledge that your loved one is emotionally present. Each time your partner grows quiet or disappears for a few hours, your inner voices swirl. Are they leaving me? Meanwhile, your partner's primary style might be avoidant. To them, every time you ask, "When will you get here?" or "Why haven't you texted?" it feels like a demand, a shackle on their personal freedom. Thus, they retreat further, intensifying your anxiety, which leads you to demand answers, and so the cycle intensifies. But suppose your style is also avoidant. Then you may see the fearful avoidant's anxious side flare up. They become desperate for small signs of your devotion. If you remain stoic or distant, they go into meltdown mode, convinced you're about to vanish. Ultimately, the contradictory nature of fearful avoidance means they'll likely pick up on whichever aspect of your insecure attachment is most hazardous for them. You can hardly guess which side of them you'll trigger. Sometimes they appear cunningly self-reliant. Other times, heartbreakingly needy. It's akin to playing emotional roulette. In the final act, consider the subtle sabotage known as passive aggression. It's that peculiar communication style where words and intentions don't match, leaving your partner perplexed. A fearful avoidant, already prone to conjuring catastrophic fantasies about your thoughts and motives, feels lost in a maze of unspoken tension. Suppose you arrive home, sullen and withdrawn, refusing to discuss your day, then snap with a half-veiled remark, "I guess nobody bothered to consider my feelings today." On the surface, you're protesting that you feel unappreciated, but you're not saying it openly. You're dropping hints, leaving your partner's imagination to run wild. The fearful avoidance mind leaps into overdrive. Why are they speaking in riddles? Have I failed them? Do they secretly blame me for something? Are they about to leave? This leads to a frantic attempt to interpret your words, stirring up the anxious side with dire illusions of betrayal. Meanwhile, that avoidant side might retort, "How dare they corner me with cryptic remarks?" The tragic irony is that if you're the one resorting to passive aggression, it may indicate your own avoidant traits. You're unwilling to address the concern head-on, opting instead for backhanded signals, inadvertently fueling the anxious partner's worst fears. A captivating cycle emerges. You hide your deeper thoughts behind barbed hints. Your fearful avoidant partner misreads them, often in the worst possible way, then spirals into conflict. Soon enough, The relationship becomes a brittle web of misunderstandings. All of this might have been prevented through forthright, tactful discussions about actual needs and feelings. But oh, how easy it is to slip into passive aggression when tension runs high and vulnerabilities loom. Throughout these 5 triggers, a clear pattern emerges. A fearful avoidant feels torn. For them, intimacy can be a double-edged sword. They crave the warmth, but dread the potential sting. They simultaneously fear abandonment and the loss of personal freedom. Their partner, if anxious, can stoke this stay-away instinct, while a more distant partner may provoke an outpouring of distress. When you toss in passivity or subtle manipulations, you have a recipe for emotional pandemonium. Perhaps the crucial lesson is this: knowledge fosters empathy. By understanding these 5 triggers, you acquire insight into a partner's self-protective logic. In the tapestry of attachment, a fearful avoidant doesn't choose to be contradictory out of malice. It's a defense woven from past hurts and a deep-seated belief that closeness is hazardous. If you find yourself in a relationship with such a person, reflection is helpful. Ask yourself, which of these triggers might I be activating without realizing it? Similarly, if you are the avoidant, you might wonder, how do I articulate my fears so that my partner doesn't stumble onto my triggers unaware? Allow these reflections to spark healthier approaches. If you are leaning toward anxious behaviors, consider establishing emotional self-sufficiency before asking for reassurance. If your partner's style inclines toward avoidance, explore gentle ways to voice your desire for space, ways that won't terrify your partner into believing you're vanishing for good. And if either of you sees passive aggression creeping into your speech, embrace directness. For the fearful avoidant, clarity is kindness. Vagueness is a labyrinth of anxieties. These 5 things will trigger avoidance. Let that phrase linger in the mind. The triggers are real and can manifest across countless everyday interactions. Some subtle, some grand. Yet, as perplexing as this style can be, it doesn't guarantee doom. Many have found pathways to understanding, forging relationships in which the anxious side feels seen and the avoidant side finds respite. When there's recognition of triggers and a sincere effort to sidestep them, transformation is indeed possible. Tread gently, remain curious, and nurture patience. Within the riddle of fearful avoidance lies a yearning heart, hoping against hope to find a place safe enough to call home. The question is whether both partners can offer one another the grace, compassion, and steadiness required to allow that heart to settle at last.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.